Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 833, Pet. Chief Lupin was in complete shock as he realized that these Rebornians were complete monsters in nature. Somehow, they solved one of the most unsolvable problems in the world. They figured out how to let a demi-human become magnetic. He wanted to sit down and process all of this information. When he first met Jaku, he thought he was seeing a once-in-a-million-years talent that he happened to discover lying in the sand. But as it turned out, he was just one of four. If these Dragonborns were anything like their older brother, then it was very well possible that they also had the capability of using that ancient voice of the mythical beasts. But thankfully, it seemed that only Jaku had that power. Chief Lupin was in the nascent spirit realm, but even he didn't know if his Dao heart could take that much shock. The baseball game was unceremoniously stopped after that unexpected awakening. Chief Lupin was not in the mood to throw a baseball. He wanted to talk with Kyo and find out what the hell was happening in their company. Why were his demi-human guards defying logic? Unfortunately for him, it seemed that the Brownbloods loved baseball more than he expected. They urged him to continue playing, so he relented, letting them play without him. So, the Brownbloods and the Rebornian humans continued to play the 9 innings, while Michael and Chief Lupin returned to the tribe to start the much-needed talk. Sitting down on his fur sofa, Chief Lupin was finally able to relax. Seeing the familiar hunting trophies on the wall made him feel grounded, made him feel that this wasn't a dream. After all, sitting opposite him were Kyo and the Dragonborns, the source of all this craziness. So, these Dragonborns are magnetic? Michael nodded. Yep. After taking a deep breath, Chief Lupin nodded. He was starting to make sense of all this. Just then, a small patch of darkness emerged from one of the wooden pillars of the cabin, moving directly towards Chief Lupin. A second later, Fudge jumped out with a big OL smile on his face. Clad with his mithril artifact cape, as well as the black rogue outfit beneath it, the little slime looked like the prized stuffed animal of an edgy teenage child. Chief Lupin stared at him. A monster? A talking slime? Fudge pouted his lips. Not a monster. Pet. I'm Master's pet. The werewolf chief's mistake was understandable. After all, it was universally accepted that monsters were neither intelligent enough to talk, nor tame enough to be called a pet. Their names were accurate. They were monsters that roamed the untamed lands. They would have been the apex predators of the world if it weren't for people. And as far as he knew, only their demon queen could control these monsters to do their bidding. Yet now, he was seeing a sentient slime acting completely independent, with its own personality and attitude, a childish one to boot. Meet Fudge. He's our mascot, Michael said. Introducing Fudge as the violet slime jumped on top of Chief Lupin's head. Urged by curiosity, Chief Lupin moved his hand to touch Fudge's slimy exterior. But before he could, he suddenly felt a foreign power try to invade his Dao heart. Beneath his feet, his shadow suddenly started to morph. The rigid edges born from the muscles surrounding his body started to convulse, slowly changing it to become a lot rounder in nature. And for a moment, a pair of red eyes and a sinister smile appeared in the middle of the shadow. This was none other than Fudge's malevolent passenger diva, trying to take over the werewolf chief's body. Chief Lupin's natural defenses as a nascent spirit being immediately dispelled the attempt. The audacity and fearlessness to do that to a power beyond the body formation realm could only be described as foolish. However, Chief Lupin couldn't even be mad. He was too shocked from what he discerned from that demonic possession. He knew its source. That was ability power. Not one like in his Dao heart, but the power born from a God-forged piece. Don't tell me. Now that he was extremely up close, Chief Lupin used his enhanced eyesight to briefly see the lustrous glimmer of a God-forged piece laying suspended where the slime's core was supposed to be. That small droplet completely upended everything Chief Lupin knew about the world. He's a magnetic, he shouted, standing up in an almost frightened reaction. Yeah, Michael confirmed. That's Fudge. That's Fudge. No, that's not how you should explain that. You do realize that this, Chief Lupin said, gesturing to everyone in the room, is impossible, right? Demi-humans becoming magnetics, that was a little bit easier to explain. After all, they were still half-human, so it was conceivable to think that they could harbor a God-forged peace in their heart. Many people theorized that it was possible, that's why they kept trying to make it happen in all these years. But a monster, becoming magnetic, that one was simply illogical. A slime, no less. By all accounts, the slime should have been incinerated into nothingness the moment its liquid body came into contact with the God-forged piece. Yet it didn't. And even more impossibly, he was able to awaken an ability power with it. For a second, Chief Lupin shuddered. The fact that all these reality-defying talents were gathered into one company sent shivers down his spine. And the next, he profusely thanked the moon god for making sure that they allied with them. He didn't have to be an oracle to know that this small group of people would make certain waves within New Sparta, and consequently the entire world itself. Ha! Chief Lupin exhaled deeply. All the pressure he felt for the lunar celebrations was quickly washed away. If he had these Rebornians as allies, then he didn't have to worry about their rankings at all. Instead, he'd only have to worry about the epidemic of heart attacks brought about by pure shock once they showed themselves in the festivals. A few hours later, the Brown Blood Chief was finally able to calm himself down. After a good talk with Michael and the Dragonborns, he found himself endeared by their antics as well. Then, Chief Lupin began a 3-day-long festival that celebrated the allyship between the Brownbloods and the Rebornians, cementing it by playing simultaneous baseball games. Kyo, would it be possible for you to create more baseball fields? Chief Lupin asked Michael. Baseball took over the Brownblood community. Everyone wanted to play it. Its popularity spilled over to the players, with both Umisu, unexpectedly Charlie, becoming celebrities within the tribe. Their performance was legendary, earning the adoration of both the men and women wanting to become good at baseball. I'll make 3 more baseball fields, Michael promised. Chief Lupin thanked him and looked up at the moon hanging in the cloudless night skies. It is truly mind-blowing to think that in your nation, everyone can play baseball anytime they want. They even have a competition of their own, the RLB, and have their own teams they can cheer on. There was longing in the chief's voice. Someday, I would want to visit this nation of yours. Seeing this nightly baseball game is truly one to hope for. Michael looked at him, a smile forming on his face. Chapter 834. High-level play. You want to watch the RLB games? Michael asked him. Of course. Now that you've shown me the wonders of this sport, I can't help but want to see high-level play for myself. From what you told me, even though those players don't have the same physical prowess that werewolves have, they still use their tenacity and their skill to triumph in the game. Chief Lupin knew that his knowledge about baseball was merely the tip of the iceberg. The fact that he was simply endowed with a physical strength meant that even a half-hearted swing would result in a probable hit. So, in order to give baseball the proper respect that it deserved, he wanted to learn everything there was to know about the sport. Unfortunately, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to do that anytime soon. The lunar celebrations required a lot of preparations that he, as a chief, had to arrange. Michael did say that travel to the parched lands would only take a few days at most, which he didn't quite believe, but even then, he simply didn't have the luxury of time. Wait here, Michael said, before teleporting again. Chief Lupin experienced déjà vu. The last time Michael did this, he brought with him baseball as well as the Dragonborns who turned out to be magnetics. Michael reappeared a few minutes later. Then, with a grin on his face, he brought out a rectangular metal brick and presented it to the werewolf chief. Sorry for the delay. Now, let me introduce to you the wonders of this new product called the phone. Chief Lupin took the phone in his hands and observed it with confusion in his face. Is this supposed to be a joke? I don't understand? It just looked like a metal stone. Michael took the phone back and controlled it. On the home screen, instead of 4, the apps now grew to 5 icons. The new one was an image that only people from his previous world would recognize. It was a television screen, with 2 antennas sprouting from its top. On the bottom inscribed the title, Reborn Tube. Michael opened up the app, seeing only a single rectangular image inside. It was a picture of a baseball field filled to the brim with spectators wearing 2 distinct red and blue colors. How did you fit a portal inside something so small? And why does my nose not sense any magical spell from it? But when he tried to put his hands through the portal, he inadvertently touched the play button, causing the image to start moving. Moon heavens! Chief Lupin gasped. A loud raucous cheering boomed out of the phone speakers, startling the werewolf chief. What's happening? For an instant, he thought he was seeing a portal that led straight in the middle of a war. But as he got his bearings, he realized that those were not screams of pain. Instead, they were cheers of celebrations. Then, the video panned closer to the field, with Chief Lupin immediately recognizing that iconic diamond plate from a near top-down perspective of the field. That's baseball. They're playing baseball. He realized. The video continued to show as a baseball player in a red uniform pitched a fast slider for a called strike. Soon after, The spectators in red cheered once again, waving their merch paraphernalia in the air. "This is a video captured live from the arena," Michael said nonchalantly. "Video? Live?" Chief Lupin muttered. These terminologies escaped him. But he could see that this little metal brick showed a perfect replication of reality that was on the other side of the continent, thousands of miles away. "You mean to tell me that this game is happening right now?" Michael nodded. "Yeah. But how can this be? I don't see any magic nor ability power coming from this object." "That's a trade secret," Michael winked. "Just know that with this phone, you can watch all the RLB games live from the comfort of your own home every night." After hearing Chief Lupin's desire to see the games, Michael was struck with inspiration. He remembered that one of the most popular apps in his previous life was a video streaming service. It was a staple of his and everyone else's life back then. So, with a little bit of help from ChatGK5, they easily created another app on the phone. Since he didn't have time to create a camera, he used his drone and connected it to the phone, live streaming the arena in crystal clear quality. In the future, he would either create a normal camera to stream the game, or he would dedicate a mini drone to be in charge of the app's videos. But for now, this would suffice. He was able to perfectly show the potential of the app to another customer. Chief Lupin wasn't even able to say anything more about the phone since he was too enthralled with the current baseball game. "Oh, what a close one. It looked like he was out." Michael chuckled. The chief was hooked. After showing him the live streaming app, he demonstrated the other uses of the phone, such as taking pictures, calling, and even summoning a delivery for this thing called beer and soda. "So, do you like the phone?" Chief Lupin faced Michael with another crazed look on his face. "This phone is magnificent. I must have it. Our tribe must have it." Just the mere fact that they could watch baseball from this little metal brick made it a non-negotiable need in their lives. "I can only manufacture. We need 1,249 phones. About 100 phones for now." Chief Lupin immediately wanted to purchase a phone for the entire tribe, knowing that they would appreciate all of its features. Not only that, but this was a product that cannot be found anywhere else. He'd be an idiot not to buy as many as he could. "We'll take all that you can give," Chief Lupin said. "But I wish that you can provide everyone with a phone in the near future." Michael nodded. He was only comfortable accepting so many orders before he was able to create the phone factory. "Here's the payment. It is blessed by the moon god itself," Chief Lupin said as he slid a fur-lined chest towards Michael. After hearing the price from Michael, the werewolf chief didn't hesitate to bring out his coffers. Michael opened the chest, indeed seeing a mound of sand dollars equaling to 1,000,000. He was sure of it because this was not the first time he saw 1,000,000 sand dollars. Now, he had more than 2,000,000 in his inventory. He had so much more than what he even knew what to do with. "I should really start spending my money." He decided that his next step was to finally visit Serena and the other mermen in the new Sparta Lake. He needed Sue drops. After all, he hadn't even made a mini drone dedicated to Jaku yet, even though it had been more than a few days after his awakening. Now, he also had to make one for Umisu, given her recent awakening. Not only that, but he also had to look for more people willing to sell Godforge pieces. It's about time he advanced the Dragonborns. Chapter 835, Hidden Chaos. Speaking of Dragonborns, Michael first visited Umisu before he left to visit the merman. He wanted to see how she was feeling after that unexpected awakening. He found her playing alone in the baseball field, hitting balls thrown to her by a magical automatic pitching machine. There was focus in her eyes, almost a somber or grim look in her face. This wasn't the look of someone that had just recently awakened their abilities. "Hey Umisu," he called out to her. The green-scaled Dragonborn flinched, causing the ball to shoot past her. "Sir Michael, I'm sorry." He gave her a bemused reaction. "What are you sorry for?" "Everyone's partying with the werewolves," she said, her head downcast. But I don't feel comfortable being around so many people." And once the machine shot out a ball, he swung and sent it flying back into the air. "It's fine," he reassured her. "Sometimes I want to be alone too. I spent a lot of time staying in my own room, not even wanting to leave my house for days at a time." Umisu looked at him with shock. "Really? But you're always working for us, for our nation." She never saw him relaxing. He was always away, doing everything he could to advance their ideology to the rest of the world. It was hard to believe that such an industrious man like him would be a shut-in. "I was like that back then, in my previous life. But now, I found myself becoming more and more active to the point where I wouldn't recognize the man if I saw myself in the mirror. It's not just because he was in a different body. He was a different person entirely. He looked more like Jaku than he was now. Lazy, unambitious, and with no direction in life whatsoever. But he changed. "How?" she asked, a hint of hope in her tone. He chuckled. "I don't know, to be honest. I just found what I wanted to do in my life. Then, he turned and handed the bat back to her. Maybe if you found what you wanted to do, then you won't feel so awkward with other people. Umisu grasped the bat in her hands, his words echoing in her mind. Her eyebrows furrowed, treating his advice as if it was some puzzle that she needed to solve. I don't understand. She shook her head. She was never good at matters regarding common sense. Ha ha ha, you can't think. You just have to feel, he said to her. I mean, why are you asking me? You are the one who awakened a diva without any kind of catharsis. Fudge, Shiina, and Jaku all experienced a great turmoil in their emotional state before they were able to awaken their divas. The life or death situation forced them to tap into the power hidden inside their hearts, allowing them to produce something that defied reality. Even he had to experience some emotional breakthrough before he could awaken his powers. So, he thought that each awakening necessitated the same kind of pressure to advance in diva cultivation. But as it turned out, he was wrong. That wasn't the only way a diva could awaken. Playing baseball was enough of a catalyst, apparently. How did you awaken? What did you feel? Umisu shook her head, straining her eyes. I don't know. I felt. Her voice got stronger as she said those words, nose almost flaring. But in the end, she controlled herself and pursed her lips, choosing not to say anything at all. Can I see your diva? Umisu hesitated for a little bit, before nodding her head. Golden lights spun above her, forming the realistic, almost solid hologram of her diva staying motionless in the air. Now that he got a closer look, he noticed the markings of nature on the green egg surface. Graceful calamity, he muttered. It fit her talent perfectly. The egg remained stationary. It was nowhere near the process of hatching at all. There were no cracks on its surface, preserving its natural designs. It was pristine. This was quite strange because her siblings almost always cracked their eggs soon after they awakened their diva. After that, their true diva would break out of their shells, showing their true nature. Michael was sure that another dragon-like hatchling was hidden under that egg. It just seemed disinterested in getting out. Is it because she didn't experience any emotional turmoil? HRNG. Michael took his focus away from the egg towards Umisu, who had her eyes closed and face fully scrunched. With her hands balled up, scales almost turning red, she exhaled a deep breath and reversed the manifestation of her diva. The green egg turned back into golden lights that swirled out of existence. HAA. Michael frowned as he saw this. It was her. For some reason, she was holding back her own diva from bursting out of its egg. Why are you holding back? Umisu averted his gaze. It's because I feel something inside me that's going to explode. I feel like if I don't push it down, it would go out of my control. It's going to hurt everyone. Michael remembered that when he first met her, Umisu was mercurial in nature, quite prone to fits of explosive anger. She would stay silent most of the time, only to suddenly shout out her true feelings and leave everyone rattled. But now that tendency lessened. She became more tame. However, it came at the cost of her unique spark. Try. Umisu looked up at him. What? Try unleashing that power to see what it can do. She immediately shook her head, taking a step back. No. I can't. Michael chuckled. What, you think you're going to hurt me? And here I thought I proved myself to be reliable. It's not that. It's because. Her words faltered. Even though she knew that Michael's strength was beyond anything she could even imagine, there was still a part of her that thought that the chaos within her could overpower him. Even if that was less than a 1% chance, she wasn't willing to take it. Come on, Michael said provocatively. Try me. A shockwave of power emanated from him as he unleashed the power hidden in his heart. The invisible pressure that a 7th-stage magnetic created ripples in the air, making Umisu raise her hands and cover her face. Above him, lights shimmered as Harbinger manifested. His full upper body appeared in all its glory, white armor gilded with gold and a hint of red, nanoparticles pulsating within the surface, and its inner circuitry showing beneath the hinges. And somehow, seeing Michael exhibit his full strength wasn't scary. It was reassuring. He gave off an indomitable sense of safety, making her finally realize that Michael would always be there to support her no matter what happened. Finally, she felt at ease. Okay, I'll try, she muttered. Umisu closed her eyes and released all the tension in her body, letting the chaos inside her start to brew. The power building up within her was frightening, her instinct immediately wanting to suppress it down to the deepest depths of her subconscious. But suddenly, she felt a warmth spread throughout her body. She smiled, knowing that Michael's golden glow surrounded her with safety. Chapter 836. Chaos Unleashed. The Godforged piece inside her heart started to convulse, spewing out loose threads. With each beat, More and more began unspooling out of the messy yarn of power hidden inside her. Omisu's nervousness started to influence the threads, making it twitch as it began to weave out of her chest and around her entire body. Michael's eyes widened. A first-stage magnetic should only be able to release a thin thread of ability power due to the limited size of their Godforge pieces. However, Omisu's ability was numerous, uncountable, as they snaked around her body, wrapping themselves like a net on her skin. With power coursing through her entire body, Omisu's physical strength soared exponentially. Her body didn't change, but Michael felt an immense power hidden beneath her skin. It felt like there was a bomb hidden inside her, ticking, threatening to destroy everything around her. Then, she opened her eyes, clarity reflected in her irises. She bent down, reaching into her shadows and retrieved her spear. This mithril artifact was covered in greenery, as if it had been left in an overgrown forest for a millennia. Its diamond-shaped tip glistened as it reflected the golden glow coming from her body. And as she grasped this weapon, Michael felt the ground underneath his feet tremble. It was as if Mother Nature herself was resonating with the awakening of this power. "I feel strong," she muttered. It certainly seemed so, given that the ability power threads weaved around her body the same way that Chief Lupan's Tao heart did. The threads infused their muscles with power, boosting their physicality beyond what was humanly possible. "ChatJK5, can you analyze her power and give me—" Just as he said that, Omisu suddenly crouched, clutching her heart with a strained look on her face. What's happening? The Godforge pieces in her heart were blinding. It glowed abnormally, beyond anything that could be considered normal, and beyond what her body could take. "Are you okay?" He thought that she was in pain, but in the next second, she suddenly straightened out her posture and looked up at the skies. There was an agitated look on her face, scrunched like a wound-up spring just mere seconds away from exploding. Meanwhile, the giant green egg above her head started to quiver, the activity inside causing cracks to start spreading along its surface. It was starting to hatch, but as much as it was a celebratory moment, it seemed that it was also a precursor to a calamity. Omisu let out an emotional scream. Argorg! Wind exploded out from Omisu, felling every tree and shattering every boulder in a 50-meter radius around herself. This shockwave was no mere after-effect. It was imbued with ability power, breaking the confines of reality. Michael immediately stepped back, splitting the dangerous wave of air with his Unity Saber. What was that? He looked at Omisu, her feet levitating a few inches from the ground. Furious howling winds revolved around her. Stormy clouds looked down from above. The ground rumbled as if a volcano was about to spontaneously erupt. Suffice it to say, there was nothing graceful about this calamity. "Omisu! Omisu!" He called out to her, but he couldn't hear her. Her eyes were absent-minded, as if her presence was currently out of this world. Yet, the chaos caused by her power looked like it was taking out her anger on the world. She looked like the personification of Mother Nature itself. Indifferent, but capable of unleashing a torrent of disasters without even blinking an eye. Michael wanted to stop all this chaos at once, worried that it would have an adverse effect on her and everything else around her. But he noticed that as the intensity of the storm increased, so did the cracks on her diva egg. It seemed that this explosion of power was necessary for her dragon to finally reveal itself. Just as he thought that, a tornado had fully formed around Omisu, taking with it all the uprooted trees and unearthed stones flying in the skies. A full tree with its roots still intact suddenly flew towards Michael, his absolute unity defense, breaking it into splinters. He paid it no heed. His mind focused on the fact that he needed to let Omisu release all of that pent-up power just enough for her egg to crack. But before he and the entire werewolf forest was taken out by the disaster she was causing. His drone buzzed as it flew away from him, reaching the edge of the forest that was just on the brink of being caught up in Omisu's storm. The wind tried to take it along its stormy path, but the drone persevered, albeit with a shaky flight. A vent opened up underneath the drone's frame, releasing a single switch from a spring-loaded mechanism. The iron block fell from the drone and hovered in the air, above the trembling ground and beneath the stormy clouds. Then the switch flicked on. Immediately, the chaos in this part of the forest halted. Everything was frozen in time. The howling wind turned mute. The trees and their broken branches laid unmoving in the air. Done with this first job, his drone zoomed to the next area of the forest, dropping another switch, connecting the two time-stopped patches of the stormy forest together. He placed 4 switches on the 4 cardinal directions around Omisu, completely containing the calamity in a 200-meter radius around them. It looked as if there was a patch of a hollowed tube in the forest where everything was suspended in time. Of course, this meant that the storm was suppressed in that region alone, letting the chaos breed like a pressurized chamber just building up to an explosion. Michael would get the brunt of the calamity completely, but he didn't care. His absolute unity defense incinerated anything that came close to him. The ability-powered wind coming from Umisu stood no chance against it. He walked forwards, breaking through the wall of razor-sharp winds with ease. Once inside, he was met with a torrent of dust and almost microscopical particles that would have shred through metal itself. Although he remained unharmed, it decreased visibility to only a meter ahead of him. But thankfully, he didn't need to know his left from right. All he needed to do was follow the direction of the storm, where the chaotic power was getting stronger. This is insane. Why is her awakening like this? A magnetic experiencing their first awakening was usually followed by a huge burst of power, similar to how human bodies pumped adrenaline to lift cars in a life-or-death situation. In the most extreme of cases, this allowed magnetics to temporarily break through the first stage and summon a power similar to the second stage. But this chaotic power was beyond that. It was equivalent to the fourth stage. Such an anomaly should have been a cause for celebration. But Michael knew that anything excessive was disastrous. Umisu's abilities certainly had a lot of power, but her body simply isn't equipped to handle it yet. Urged by his worries, he quickened his steps, finally breaking through the howling winds. Chapter 837. A sliver. Now that he got close enough to see her past the whizzing tornado, he frowned. It seemed his worries were right. Standing in the middle of this whirlwind, she became subject to her own chaos. Stones pelted her from all sides, leaving her with cuts and bruises everywhere. Not only that, but her green scales were starting to turn brown, almost blackish, as if her skin was getting burned from the inside out. But even she didn't seem to notice the pain as her unfocused eyes continued to look up at the skies. Her body can't take this much power. Stopping the storm was as easy as flipping a switch. Literally. That would certainly save her. But he hesitated. He still had to wait until her diva completely hatched. Cracks had already permeated around the egg's surface, with a few patches already falling off, revealing the green glow underneath the shell. He had a feeling that stopping it now would have an even more adverse effect than if he had just left it alone. Besides, it looked like it just needed a few more seconds before the dragon broke out of its shell. But then, the rumbling in the egg ceased, halting its hatching process. Why did it stop? Wake her up. She needs to actively accept her chaos. That's the only way it's going to hatch. Michael didn't question Harbinger's advice and quickly summoned up all the air in his lungs and shouted, "Umisu!" Finally, the green-scaled dragonborn twitched her head, clarity returning to her eyes. She looked at Michael, seeing the disaster that she had unleashed upon the world behind him. But before a sense of guilt and shame crossed her mind, Michael took her attention. He nodded and gave her a smile of reassurance. Everything was going to be all right. Seeing this, a resolute expression dawned on her face. The egg above her finally shed off its shell, revealing a blinding green light that permeated everything. The whirlwind of storms wreaking havoc around her started to wane, a subtle calming green hue slowly being infused amongst the chaos. She thrust her spear into the skies, creating a visible cone of vapor at the tip as it surpassed the speed of sound. A thin pillar pierced through the air, reaching high up in the skies and destroyed the stormy clouds obscuring the moon. Finally, the storm ceased, dissipating into a gentle wind. Everywhere around New Sparta, figures looked up at the commotion. A certain blind woman stared in the direction of the werewolf's quadrant, eyebrows raising in amusement. "Spearmaster," she muttered. "There's another talent with the Brownbloods? I should tell Freya to come here." Michael caught Amisu just before her legs gave out, holding her shoulders in place. "Sir, Michael? What happened?" she asked him. "You don't remember anything?" She shook her head. Then, her gaze scanned the surroundings and saw the aftermath of her chaotic outburst. It looked like a bomb had exploded right from where she stood, with signs of an outward blast streaking across the ground. "Did I do this?" she asked, her hands trembling. "Yeah, you did. We're gonna have to pay a ton of money for a cleaning service. You can use a broom, right? 'Cause our money's a little tight right now." Umisu let out a chuckle. "Don't worry," he assured her. "No one's hurt." A relieved smile flashed across her face. "How do you feel? Stronger, right?" Umisu looked down and clutched her chest, eyes widening. It's... The chaotic spool of power that gathered at her chest was now gone, replaced by a much more tame ball of carefully condensed pellet. Somehow, her own Godforge pieces had formed around this chaotic power and restrained it. She could no longer feel the pull of anger. For the first time in her life, she was feeling in control of herself, no longer being led by those unseemly emotions that gripped her all the time. It was as if she could finally breathe fresh air. "It looks like you have conquered your own demons," Michael said. "Instead of being enslaved by it, you've tamed it instead." The chaotic power was still inside Amisu, but now its destructive tendencies had been thoroughly moderated by a much stronger power. It was kept locked tight but not completely destroyed. This meant that there was a possibility that Amisu could tap into that power if she so desired. Michael had never seen something like this before. Her own power, her own talent, was destructive and chaotic enough to rival even that of ability power. To be exact, it was a magnifier. After all, she was able to manifest a fourth stage power even after her initial awakening. Do you want to try and tap into that power? Amisu hesitated for a second. She didn't want to cause further destruction. But there was something in her gut that was telling her that it was okay. That she didn't have to worry. Was that you? She looked up just as swirling golden lights started to form the visage of her diva. It was a green dragon in its infancy, bountiful grass growing on her skin where the scales should be. There were flowers, vines, and all kinds of greenery sprouting from the dragon's grass fields, as if it was a miniature garden. Michael noticed that the blades of grass in the dragon's skin looked similar to a werewolf's fur. It was spiky, almost matted, and looked tough enough to endure even the sharpest swords. I trust you, Amisu said as she closed her eyes and focused on the power in her heart. As the chaos in her body started to unlock, a sense of warmth spread around her body. It wasn't harsh like the first time she unleashed the chaos. It was cozy, like the embrace of a familiar friend, or the heat of a campfire on a cold winter's night. The God-forged pieces in her heart unspooled its thread, and simultaneously revealed a tiny sliver of the chaotic power underneath it. The green dragon above her silently roared, unfurling its vine-netted wings. A slight red hue emanated from the grass blades on its skin, getting more intense as the chaos unraveled. Michael watched as the invisible pressure emanating from Amisu's body started to rise, going from the base of the first stage to the peak, and all the way to the second stage. It looked like the power would continue to rise even further, but Amisu's face started to strain, her eyes starting to be invaded by a gray haze. She quickly stopped before it permeated deeper into her subconscious. Then, she took a deep breath. Her physical power remained at the second stage of body formation, steady and calm. I can only control it up to this point, Amisu said, disappointment in her eyes. That's amazing, Michael praised. The fact that she could tap into the chaos meant that there was a possibility in the future where she could fully harness its power. Right now, she was still at the infancy of her control. But once she mastered it, she could easily surpass 2, maybe 3 stages above her own. That was a cheat. Hee, Amisu blushed. It's thanks to you, Sir Michael. You don't have to thank me. You did it all on your own. And now you have to learn how to control it. Thankfully, they just made new friends who were adept at this sort of thing. Chapter 838. Lagging? Michael turned just as a pack of giant wolves arrived in the aftermath of Amisu's chaos. A brown wolf, bigger, stronger than the rest, walked forward. Its stride sent tremors on the ground, before its body started to convulse and shrink, transforming back into a human. It was Chief Lupin, with a face that could only be described as a mixture of shock, confusion, and even fear. It was the same face he made when he learned the truth about the Rebornian's secret awakening power. What happened here? Michael raised his hand. Sorry. We were just practicing Amisu's abilities. Chief Lupin looked at Michael with doubt in his eyes. It wasn't that he didn't trust Michael, but when they felt that catastrophic power coming from the forest, they thought that the moon itself sent down a meteor to strike down its foes. That power didn't belong to any human, or any demi-human for that matter. Okay, he muttered, still in disbelief. Oh, it's great that you're here. I was just about to ask you something, Michael said, changing the subject. You said earlier that you celebrate a festival whenever someone grows their first fur. Does that relate to your transformation? The werewolf chief nodded, still a little bit preoccupied with that catastrophe. Yes, growing a fur precedes a werewolf's first transformation, he explained. We celebrate a festival, not just to honor and welcome a new warrior in our midst, but to also show them our support. After all, the moon's power is far too potent for young minds to control, especially those who tap into its power for the first time. They will find themselves trapped within their own psyche, unable to interact with the world as their inner wolves enact destruction upon the world. That is why we hold a festival. We ensure safe passage through this arduous ordeal because no amount of moonstone will allow them to regain their sanity. Once they conquer it, they can ensure a healthy bond between them and their wolves in their lifetime. It is a rite of passage that all of us had to go through. Michael glanced at Amisu, her eyes glistening with hope. They also feel that way? She asked. The werewolves that she had been so awkward with were now the closest thing she had aside from family. The Dragonborns were her own blood, but they didn't understand her troubles. They didn't understand why she had to stick to a lonely corner whenever she was at a party, or stutter when talking to someone new. They never knew why she withdrew herself from the world. But it seemed that she wasn't alone. Werewolves were also plagued with this uncontrollable chaos brewing in their chests. but they were able to conquer theirs. They even have their own culture in dealing with this urge. What do you think, Umisu? Michael's question spurred something within the green-scaled dragonborn. Even before he asked the question, the thought had already formed in her head. Yes. With little to no persuasion from the brown-blood chiefs, Umisu was allowed to stay in their tribe for the time being. Having another dragonborn in their midst was equivalent to another prideful tattoo in his body. She'd be learning the ways of how the werewolves suppressed the inner wolf inside them. And coincidentally, the one Chief Lupin chose to become Umisu's mentor was none other than the female werewolf who arbitrated Jaku's tournament. May the moon be with you. My name is Saloon, said the female werewolf. Hi. HYK. Umisu jumped away as Saloon attempted to come close to her with her nose. Saloon immediately apologized. I'm sorry. It is customary for werewolves to sniff each other during an introduction. It's okay. I hope I don't smell bad in your nose. You weren't. It was quite pleasant since you smell just like him. I mean, you smell just like pine. Saloon's cheeks were flushed red, furtively glancing over to a certain dark blue-scaled dragonborn laying on a tree a few meters away from them. She breathed a sigh of relief once she realized she hadn't been noticed. Umisu blinked. Unfortunately for the poor love-stricken werewolf, what Umisu didn't get in social skills doubled in her perceptiveness. In an instant, she realized the budding love story between her mentor and her brother. I won't tell, she whispered. Saloon buried her head in her hands. Erg. Stupid. Umisu couldn't help but chuckle at Saloon's embarrassment, which the werewolf reciprocated with a laugh of her own. Immediately, the awkwardness between the two vanished. The green-scaled dragonborn gestured for Saloon to come closer. If you help me conquer my powers, I'll tell you my brother's weakness, she whispered. Immediately, Saloon's eyes widened, before giving a resolute nod. Tell me more. You see, my brother is a little bit of a... The two then scurried off into the distance, giggling and whispering to each other. After helping Umisu with her awakening, Michael decided to head off into the Merman Lake. I would have liked to talk with you about the lunar celebrations, but if you have more important matters to take care of, then so be it. I can wait, Chief Lupin said, pretending to wipe a tear from his face. As much as Michael wanted to watch the Brownbloods get insanely good at baseball in a matter of a few days, sarcasm, he simply couldn't delay this matter any longer. He needed to spend money. His drone was due for a much-needed upgrade. It's just going to be a brief visit to the mermans, Michael assured him. So, leaving Umisu to train with Saloon, and Jaku to be bothered by the Brownbloods, he set off to the Merman Lake. Michael arrived at the wooden floating dock on the new Sparta Lake. He waited for a few minutes, before a beautiful red-haired mermaid emerged from the darkness of the water's depths. Serena surfaced from the water with her hair completely dry, its curls bouncing from her shoulders. It's as if she hadn't just submerged her whole body in water a few seconds before. She only came up with half of her body still in the water, but Michael could see the glimmer of a shiny emerald green tail oscillating back and forth to keep her floating. Michael, sorry for replying so late. He'd been trying to contact her through his clones, but she always seemed to be busy. It was only now that she replied to his messages and arranged a meeting here. It's fine. I'm guessing you're busy dealing with your siblings. Oh my Pearl, you have no idea, she muttered, shaking her head. But I don't want to think about that now. What did you need? Are you planning on buying some Sudrops? Michael nodded, excitement in his tippy taps. Yes. Serena nodded and swirled her hand in the water, her gentle movements magically creating a vortex that led to somewhere even deeper than this lake. How many are you planning on buying today? Now, I gotta tell you I've had some really big transactions a few days ago. I hope Reborn isn't lagging behind too much because a lot of things are happening in New Sparta. Chapter 839. Which? All of them. Big transactions? Yeah, Serena nodded. The big companies and the major beastfolk groups had been visiting me these past few days, exchanging their sand dollars for Sudrops. Either they're stocking up, or they're preparing for something big to happen. Michael nodded. Only one event came to mind. The lunar celebrations. As far as he knew, that was the only major event happening in New Sparta. It didn't just involve the werewolves, but also most of the human factions intending to put their mark into the general zeitgeist of this new amalgamation of culture. According to Chief Lupin, there were some deals and alliances being made to this very day, which definitely necessitated some big transactions. Hopefully we can catch up, Michael chuckled. Don't worry. Once I get my brothers and sisters on board with the roller coasters, sand dollars will be raining down on our nation that you won't even know what to do with. Serena chuckled to herself, not even realizing that she said, our, instead of your. She had fully accepted herself as a Rebornian at this point, which Michael was very much on board with. Oh, but is this going to be okay? Michael asked, gesturing to the vortex. What do you mean? It's kinda small, don't you think? Small? Serena looked back at the vortex spinning magically in the water. The hole was about the size of a palm, which was enough to take in about 5,000 sand dollars per second. No, wait. Why does that even matter? Nobody ever complained about the vortex because at the end of the day, as long as it did its job, it didn't matter if it took a few seconds to a few minutes. But Michael seemed too concerned about it. Fine, fine. Michael raised his hands in surrender. I just didn't want to waste your time since you look busy. Then, the shadow underneath his feet suddenly expanded into a giant tenebrous circle in front of him. A wooden chest emerging out of it a second later. And before Serena could even ask the question that seemed to be lingering in her mouth, Michael opened the chest and revealed the shiny mound of sand dollars inside. About 1.3 million to be exact. Ah! Serena was choked. That's more than 1 million sand dollars. When she was talking about big transactions a few seconds ago, she was talking about transactions in the hundreds of thousands, at most at 1 million sand dollars at a time. And those were the big names in New Sparta. And now, Michael seemed to be part of the prestigious league of rich clientele. Serena never would have thought that that was even possible. Where did he get that kind of money? I'm still saving up the half for later, Michael added nonchalantly. At this point, Serena didn't even know why she was surprised. This could only happen to one person, and that was Michael. Just throw the money in the water. I'll take care of it, Serena sighed. Michael did as she said, using magic to create a cascading waterfall effect as he dumped the chest towards the vortex. It greedily swallowed all the sand dollars, growing even bigger to accommodate the increased rate. Still, it took about a minute before every sand dollar was consumed, and another minute after that before the vials started shooting out of the vortex like an ATM. At this point, exactly 130 vials floated around Michael, each one containing a drop of sue. It was an amazing sight to see, especially after the drought that he had all these times. A giant magic circle appeared under these levitating vials before an invisible force uncapped them from the corks. Then, the clear, viscous drop of liquid inside floated out of the vials and arced towards his palm. Soon, these sue drops joined to form a bigger drop, which, funnily enough, was the same size as the water ball he had manifested when he was first reincarnated into this world. Then, his drone came out of nowhere and ran through the drop at extremely high speeds. However, the drops didn't dissipate into a mist after that collision. Instead, it wrapped around the drone as if it was a slime trying to digest the metal creature. That only lasted for a short while before the drone's surface began absorbing the drops, before eventually, the drone turned as dry as a desert. Michael excitedly looked at the drone shop, mithril artifact, drone, spirit of old, 130 drops, vision, camera, drone vision, weapon, Unity firearms, Unity gun, Unity grenade 2. Ability, switch inventory 1, mini drone inventory 2. Propeller, stealth, muffled propeller. Speed, double blades 1. Frame, stealth, camouflage 1. Invisibility. Defense, Unity shield 1. Expansion, drones, mini drone, expansion 1+, new rooms 5+. Allies, fudge, mini drone link, inhabitation 5, ability 5, Jaku, mini drone link 1, weapon 1, inhabitation 5, ability 5, Omisu, mini drone link 1, weapon 1, inhabitation 5, ability 5. For the first time in his life, Michael wasn't overwhelmed with difficult choices. He didn't have to pick between having his drone be stealthy or have more firepower. For the first time, he could choose both. He could pick anything he wanted and he'd still have almost 100 drops left over. It was a refreshing feeling, one that he would cherish to have forever. But of course, if he wanted this feeling to last, then he had to earn a lot more sand dollars in the future. He shouldn't be satisfied. His eyes then hovered over to the pocket dimension option. Now, there was an option for him to either buy an expansion for his current one, or to buy another isolated room entirely. But what's the plus on the cost? This means that the cost of the upgrade will increase the more you purchase this option. Michael tilted his head. So, if I buy the second isolated room for 5 drops, the third one would cost even more? Yes. Michael squinted his eyes. You're not scamming me, are you? Did you increase the prices just because you know I have a lot of money? Negative. The prices for these options are not arbitrarily set by me. The costs come from how much drops are needed to complete the upgrade. Michael looked askance. Yeah, sure. Either way, it was still a worthy enough upgrade. After all, if he could grow another darkwood in this isolated room. Then that was another 200,000 sand dollars per month. That was 20 drops. So, it was more than worth it to spend 5 drops on getting another room. Wait a minute, ChatJK5. How big is the expansion upgrade for the isolated room? Will it be able to fit another Darkwood? You would need to buy 3 consecutive expansions in order to get enough room for a second Darkwood. And how much would that cost in total? 5 drops. Michael shook his head. Now he was sure that ChatJK5 was cheating him. Chapter 840, Upgrades, people. Upgrades. ChatJK5 simply ignored his accusations. Whatever. Now it's time to start looking at what to buy. Wait, I don't have to. I can just click every single option, ha 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 ha. Michael looked like a crazed mental patient, suddenly smiling without any rhyme or reason. This freeing feeling of buying everything in stock must have been the reason why there were shopaholics in his previous world. Living in decadence simply irresistible. He didn't even look at the options before he started purchasing them like crazy. He bought the available vision upgrade, finally being able to see a magnetic's ability power with a single glance. He'd be able to see their power and their cultivation instantly. The importance for this upgrade could not be overstated, which only goes to show how much he needed this spending spree. He bought the weapons options, allowing him to finally store more switches inside, both on his main drone and subsequent mini-drones. He also bought the subsequent upgrade for the Unity Grenade, adding more firepower and lessening its cooldown. He went over to the propeller option, finally upgrading his drone's speed. It had never lagged behind in speed before, but that was only because it didn't need to. Its stealth allowed it to basically ambush his enemies, hit them, and disappear from their sight. But, as he learned with his fight against the Unity creatures, there were definitely some abilities that could see through the stealth, especially those that were higher ranked than him. And he had a feeling that he would be facing those kinds of opponents real soon, especially with the motley groups here in New Sparta. Next was the drone's frame. He bought the Unity Shield upgrade, allowing his drone to have its own form of defense. Before, he was only able to protect the drone with his own absolute Unity Shield if he was piloting it directly. So when he was protecting his own body, the drone was basically vulnerable to any attack. Sure, its mithril constitution protected it against most forms of offenses, but that didn't mean it was invulnerable. He almost learned that the hard way. His drone was very close to being destroyed during the obelisk's test. He didn't even know what would happen after that. Would he be able to build it back up, or would he have to start all over with another mithril artifact? He was very thankful he didn't have to know. Next was the expansion upgrades. He bought that enlarge and shapeshift option, which allowed for more versatility in all categories. Offense, defense, and stealth. He could basically change his drone's shape in any form with these upgrades. He could also buy more mini-drones, but he wanted to leave that for later. The same went with the pocket dimension upgrades. He could basically deplete all of his money with those upgrades if he wanted to. So he went on to the last upgrade option, allies. Mini-drone link basically allowed a Rebornian magnetic to attach a mini-drone to their mithril artifact weapons, thereby imbuing it with powers and features that Michael purchased, including the Unity gun, magnetic vision, etc. This was not only a second form of offense for the Rebornians, but it was also a way for Michael to keep track of them at all times. It wasn't that he was worried for them, but he was worried because of them. Fudge especially. That slime definitely took advantage of him not caring what he did in the shadows to the fullest extent. The weapon upgrade, on the other hand, posed a much more upfront advantage for the Dragonborns. From its description, it said that this option would allow for future upgrades to their mithril artifacts, much like how he was doing right now with the drone. After that was the inhabitation upgrade, which cost a hefty 5 drops. This unlocked a small pocket dimension within their mini-drone mithril artifact, allowing them to inhabit it any time they wanted. Damn. If the drone wasn't attached to their weapons, I could use the space to plant more darkwood. He quickly shook his head, noticing that his thoughts were filled with avarice. He didn't want to be too greedy. If he took their mini-drone's pocket dimension, he was basically cutting off one of their safe havens. That should be their own room that they could do whatever they wanted to do in. They earned it. Now, the ability upgrade was much more beneficial to him. It cost 5 drops because it allowed him to basically borrow their powers for his own use. He didn't know what that entailed, but he knew having another power at his arsenal was a tremendous advantage. All in all, these allies' upgrades definitely cost the most during the spending spree, needing 44 of the 58 drops needed for those upgrades. It made him realize how much more he had compared to what he could buy. ChatJK5, why aren't there more options popping up? Even after buying everything in all the menus, most of them still had the option. He thought he needed to buy all upgrades before it could unlock, but it was still hidden till now. The upgrades will refresh in 24 hours, 59 minutes, 55 seconds. Michael was fine with that. It gave him a feeling of superiority seeing that even ChatJK5 couldn't keep up to his massive upgrade session. This just leaves me with 72 drops left. His eyes then glazed over to the pocket dimension upgrades. The next isolated room cost 5 drops, which was reasonable. I'll buy this upgrade first, then I'll see how much the next one is. He hovered over to the option and bought the upgrade. Pocket dimension. 2 rooms. Subspace. Expansion 1+. New rooms 6+. The cost changed from 5 drops to 6, a 1 drop difference. He then bought another room, bringing the total to 3 rooms. New rooms 7+. So the upgrades will add 1 drop per room added. That was reasonable, but it would quickly add up once his rooms reached the double digits. After thinking about it, he decided to buy 5 more rooms, 8 in total. New rooms 12+. The next room now cost a whopping 12 drops, which was quite steep even with the amount of money he had. Still, it was worth it. Having 8 isolated rooms meant another 1.6 million sand dollars each month, given that he could sell each darkwood for 200,000 each. With all that said and done, he now had 16 drops left in total. He already knew what to spend with these excess drops. He looked at the only menu that wasn't completely sold out. Drones. Mini drone 1. Thankfully, he could buy a mini drone for 1 drop each. There was no increase in price no matter how many he bought. Without hesitating any longer, he quickly purchased 16 mini drones in an instant, finally depleting his Su drops. He was going to dedicate 2 of those mini drones for Jaku and Emisu, who still hasn't gotten theirs, and the rest of it would be with him. Having 14 mini drones at his disposal, each with an ability to shoot a unity gun, basically made him a one-man army. In fact, he wasn't just satisfied with 14 mini drones. He wasn't going to stop until he had 100 of them flying by his side. At that point, there was basically nothing that could stop him in the body formation realm. And with more, he would definitely have a chance against nascent spirits as well. Chapter 841. Who's Kyo? Michael watched with eager anticipation as the drone in front of him started to unleash loads and loads of nanoparticles, each one brimming with a power similar to a Godforge piece. Usually, these nanoparticles would swarm towards a particular part of the drone to build its upgrade. It would cover the camera, chipping away at its glass screen and its frame before rebuilding it with something entirely new. The same way went with the other upgrades. But this time, the nanoparticles practically overwhelmed the drone, drowning it in a tsunami, like a world trapped in nothing but stormy waters. He could hear the sounds of metal clashing against metal, the main frame creaking as it underwent uncontrollable turmoil. This scared him a little bit. After all, mithril artifact was supposed to be the strongest metal in the world, but hearing it getting shredded and torn apart made him think that it was close to death. Chat JK5, how long is this upgrade going to take? It will take an estimated 2 days. That long? Upgrades used to only last for a few minutes, an hour at most. But now, it would take 48 hours before he could finally see the fruits of his hard-earned spending spree. It made sense though once he thought about it. The drone would practically be creating 16 new mini-drones from scratch. It was birthing something as complex and as powerful as its own body, albeit with a smaller frame. He was lucky that it would only last 2 days. I guess it's fine. I have other matters to attend to anyway. Speaking of which, he completely forgot that he was still standing in front of Serena. There was confusion, shock, and awe in her face as she watched the drone become swarmed by bee-like nanoparticles out of nowhere. She would have screamed, if it weren't for the smile on Michael's face. He was so excited with the upgrades that he forgot he was in the presence of someone else. Thankfully, Serena was someone he could trust. He wouldn't have let down his guard otherwise. It certainly fits you, she said, complimenting him. Thank you. Listen, she said, twiddling her fingers in her red curly hair. I know that you have a lot of things to do. But, just as she said that, the water behind her suddenly started to bubble. They both turned around, seeing a dark shadow emerge from the darkest depths of the lake towards her. Soon after, a group of 5 mermen emerged wearing armor made out of iridescent mollusk shells and corals. And unlike Serena, who had a human upper body and a mermaid's tail, these mermen were more animal than they were human. Most of them had squid-like faces, each different in size, shape, and color. Their tentacles wriggled uncomfortably as they emerged from the water, but they themselves didn't squirm. Breathing air in the surface world was only a minor inconvenience to them. It's you guys, Serena said, putting her hand on her waist, annoyed. Michael recognized them as well. He briefly saw them stand guard in the sunken ship territory down in the lake, which was controlled by none other than Princess Octavia. Princess Serena, our mistress is now ready to see you, one of the guards said respectfully. Despite their reverent attitude, Serena wasn't having it. Oh, does she now? She's so magnanimous, isn't she? Allowing me to finally enter her humble abode. In case it wasn't clear, she was full of sarcasm, which the guards certainly didn't understand. Yes, our mistress's generosity extends to everyone. Serena rolled her eyes. After all, she had been trying to talk with Octavia these past few days. But that girl always deferred to simply using her guards to communicate. It was very annoying. Why the sudden change of heart? Princess Octavia would like to talk to you and your guest, the guard said, gesturing to Michael. Serena's eyebrows slanted unevenly. You know him? Yes, Sir Kyo has visited the princess quarters just recently with the esteemed Professor Lichtenstein. She would like to know the results of their mission. Kyo? Serena looked at Michael, who quickly gave her an imperceptible signal with his eyes. And using his shadow, he was able to telepathically ask for her discretion regarding his true identity. He still wanted to keep on introducing himself as Kyo. He found that being known as the professor's protégé opened up doors that were previously inaccessible to anyone else. I'll tell you the details later. Just go with it. Serena, the quick-thinking mermaid that she was, immediately went along with his new identity. So she wants to see Kyo. All right, take us to her. Octavia's guards nodded, before moving their hands in a circle, the tentacles in their mouths wriggling as they summoned ability power from their Tao hearts. The water bubbled, forming and melding into one another. But this time the air didn't escape the water's surface tension. It built up with more and more volume like a balloon, until eventually forming a giant bubble big enough to house a single person. Then they asked Michael to step inside. This was the only way that a human could go into the merman's territory without suffocating. Of course, Michael could use his powers to survive, but that wouldn't really live up to his name as the nerdy, powerless Kyo. So, guided by the merman and Serena, they submerged deep underwater and began descending into the depths. In the meanwhile, Serena kept giving Michael furtive glances, trying to get answers about his history as Kyo. Michael knew he owed her some answers, so he conjured some telepathic magic to communicate with her under the guard's radar. You know Professor Lichtenstein? And somehow, you're his protégé. You know about the professor? Serena nodded with wide eyes. Of course. I remember when he visited Atlantis. Even Father treated him as a VIP guest. Michael thought for a second. A historian meeting with the Ocean King could only mean one thing. The professor went to Atlantis? Let me guess. He was trying to do some research on Mariana's jewel, right? A gurgling sound escaped Serena's mouth as she gasped at his words. It almost caught the attention of the guards, but thankfully, a school of fishes swam past them just in time. Do not worry. They're harmless, said one of the guards. Fishes have become braver lately because of the lack of food. Michael took note of the guard's words before turning his attention back to Serena, who was still looking at him with pure shock. How do you know about that? The professor told me. Princess Octavia wanted his help in finding it. Serena's eyes narrowed. Of course she's trying to find it. Aren't you? He asked her. I heard whoever finds it will eventually rule over Atlantis and the entirety of the seven seas. Serena quickly shook her head. Of course not. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Taking over my father's job is not on my list of dreams. But don't you want to find it just for curiosity's sake? She considered it for a second before saying, still no. Legends say that Mariana's jewel will bring growth and prosperity to the ocean. But conversely, it could also cause ruin to the entire world. Chapter 842. Gift or calamity? Even Michael couldn't hide his surprise. What? Is that true? Serena nodded, the grave consequence of the jewel reflected in her expression. It is true that it will bring great prosperity upon the ocean, but it does so by bringing forth a great and intense creation power that instantly increases all marine life in the world, including the ocean itself. Michael raised his eyebrows as he started to piece together the implication. If that happens, the entire world will be submerged in water. The picture of that future was grim and desolate. Mortals would be the first to die off, unable to survive in the onslaught of tsunamis and waves that reached the high heavens. If it was just a normal ocean, then perhaps a portion of humanity would still be able to live, thanks to the power of magic and mana. However, the oceans in this world weren't as kind as the oceans back in his previous life. The seven seas here were filled with catastrophic weather that would destroy even modern naval ships into pieces of scrap metal. That was the reason why travel between continents was so difficult, and why the cooperation between the Draconic Queen and the Ocean King for easier travel was so important. Michael could only see magnetics being able to live in such a future, and they only represented 0.01% of all living life on Earth, or probably even less. Suffice it to say, it would be apocalyptic, one that would even trump the catastrophic event that separated the ancient era from the modern one. Michael looked at her, trying to see if the future painted on his mind was the same as the one she was implying. She pursed her lips, as if she didn't want to believe it herself. After all, they'd been taught from their childhood until their deaths that Mariana's jewel was a relic with an ethereal power that must be treated with great reverence. They all say that bringing the wonders of the ocean to the entire world would be a gift, a glorious bestowal of the greatest power on earth. But as someone who has always been fascinated with the surface world, especially now after she saw the virtue of humans in Reborn, she questioned whether it was really a gift or a calamity. There was beauty in the surface world that couldn't be found in the oceans, and vice versa. The two could coexist peacefully without one having to destroy the other. Then does that mean that everyone who wants to find Mariana's jewel wants to destroy the world? Serena chuckled and shook her head. Believe it or not, most of them think that they're doing everyone a favor. By killing them off? By saving them. Merman believed that finding Mariana's jewel would signal the return of a paradise once lost. And in that heaven, humans, mermen, beast folks, and all manners of living things would be able to coexist in one shared space, completely free from worries and heartbreak. If they were to be believed, then one could say that they were indeed trying to help everyone by ushering in a new era of peace and paradise. But if they were wrong, they would send a catastrophic apocalypse that destroyed the entire world. Both were two sides of the same coin, and Michael didn't like to gamble. Now that he knew what possible consequences that the Mariana's jewel could bring, he would rather let it be buried in whatever space it was hidden in, untouched for millions and millions of years. But we don't have to worry, Serena said, trying to return to her light-hearted mentality. Everyone's been trying for thousands of years, to no avail. Even my father, and your professor, have not come close to figuring out if it even exists or not. Michael didn't really feel comforted by that. He didn't know why. Actually, he did know why, he just didn't want to admit it to himself. After all, whether he wanted to admit it or not, he was a special being in this world. He didn't conform to normal standards. He was blessed by two gods or godlike beings, as far as he knew. First was the bratty goddess, who sent him into this world in the first place and gave him all his powers and his talents. And second was Gaia, or now known as the Iron Maiden. Blessed or cursed by them, one could see it either way. After all, thanks to their blessing, he was able to get powers that shouldn't have existed in this modern world. The bratty goddess gave him the power to control unity, something that was previously lost and could only be found in the ancient humans. Then, Gaia appeared, manifesting as his diva for one instance, which basically jump-started his whole magnetic cultivation. And would you have guessed it, both powers were found back in the ancient era. Somehow, he attracted everything that related to the mysteries of a bygone era, as if he was actually magnetic to them. From liberating an ancient original vampire, to awakening demi-humans with powers from mythical beasts, to entering bones and retrieving an all-powerful Tesseract cube, he seemed to get everything that most thought to have only been found in legends. Somehow, he had a feeling that he would also stumble upon this Mariana's jewel. Or perhaps he already had. A thought popped up in his mind, one pertaining to a certain object back in his drone's pocket dimension, before he quickly shook his head and buried the thought deep down into his subconscious. Can it be? He pondered. No. If it was the Mariana's jewel, then it should have caused a catastrophe. He nodded, as if trying to console himself. By all accounts, he should have nothing to worry about. After all, he wasn't seeing signs of an apocalyptic tidal wave coming anytime soon. But he couldn't help but think. What if it hasn't been activated yet because he hasn't brought it out to the real world? The giant, iridescent pearl that Cthulhu gave him was his leading candidate for this Mariana's jewel. The ancient Leviathan monster gave it to him as a gift for helping the poor girl Nixie from her curse. Back then, he met Cthulhu in the void of Nixie's mind. And there, he was given the pearl, which he subsequently stored immediately in his drone's pocket dimension. Technically, he hasn't brought it out to the real world just yet. I'm overthinking things, he tried to convince himself. Cthulhu seemed like a nice guy. All things considered, he wouldn't have given me a world-ending relic without warning me first, right? He was holding onto the hope that an ancient Leviathan monster had humanity's best interest in mind. It was a very precarious thought. It may very well be possible that a monster simply gave him a key that basically would unleash it and every beast in the water to feast on the remains of the sunken world. He shuddered. Thankfully, that didn't seem all that likely as well. If it was, then why keep it secret for so long? He shook his head. Thinking about such harrowing things was stressing him out. Michael? Are you okay? You're spacing out. Serena called out to him. I'm fine, he replied. I'm just thinking about how I'm very thankful for my drone right now. Chapter 843, Politicking. Eventually, Michael's rumination of a grim future was cut to an end when they finally reached the bottom of the lake. Immediately, his eyes were filled with lights and colors coming from bioluminescent corals hanging from what could only be described as street lamps littering the lake floor. There were even some small glowing fishes swimming in their own separate stream, guiding mermen and mermaids alike towards their destination like road markings. In the center of all this was a giant sunken ship made out of decaying wood, with its mast broken in half and a large hole in the middle, either made by a giant cannonball or more realistically, a Leviathan shark's bite. His bubble entered familiar territory as it got led inside the sunken ship, attracting the attention of mermen and mermaids going about their day, to-day lives under the water. This time, though, there was a bit more reverence and respect in their gazes. At first he thought that his reputation as the esteemed professor's protégé finally got him some well-deserved admiration, but it turned out that their veneration was directed to the mermaid beside him. Serena curtly nodded her head at the passing merman, who reciprocated with extreme gratitude, some to the point of releasing ink, which was quite weird for him, but not so much in these parts. Nobility has its perks, I guess. Eventually, they reached a familiar throne room made from salvaged ship parts and makeshift shells. Despite that, these were no means rickety. It looked well constructed, as if it weren't recycled in the first place. Student Kyo, I was waiting for your visit. Michael looked up, only to see a mermaid with an octopus for an upper body. Once she greeted him, her eyes turned to the red-haired mermaid beside him. Immediately, Princess Octavia's skin started to change into a myriad of colors, its dots merging and morphing to reflect the current turmoil in her emotions, as she saw a familiar face. Serena. Octavia. Even though the bottom of the lake was plenty cold enough, Michael felt an even colder sensation coming from these two. One wouldn't even think they were sisters to begin with. I sure hope whatever excuse you can come up with is enough of a reason for ignoring me, said Serena. My apologies, sister. I simply thought that the well-being of everyone else was more important than you. I shall take that into account in the future, Octavia replied with an imperceptible smile. Serena could only grumble after that riposte. Anyway, let us not be rude in front of our guest, said Princess Octavia. I take it that your business with the antique went well? Michael or Kyo nodded. Kinda. We retrieved the antique. Yes. That is great news. I hope both you and the professor are working hard to decipher its contents. He scratched his chin. I don't know yet. The professor had to leave because of some other matter. That's the reason why I hadn't returned to you so soon. Princess Octavia frowned in disappointment. And the antique? A colleague of his took it to deliver to him. That was Katerina's excuse, but he knew that the professor was actually in a comatose state and was unable to study the antique. But of course he wasn't going to say that to Octavia. I see. That is a shame. Meanwhile, Serena couldn't help but shake her head. How rich. Now you're involving yourself in human matters? I thought you wanted to find Mariana's jewel and rule over the entire world. Princess Octavia scowled at her. I still do, she said. But I know my limits. Finding the jewel is not for the short term. Right now, my priority is in the present, in New Sparta. Then, her face changed, morphing into an amiable smile just as fast as she was changing her colors to suit the environment. And that is where you'll come in, sister. Me? Yes, you and your affinity to the surface world. See, our brother has big plans in New Sparta. He is planning on uniting everyone into a single banner under his own. And I don't want that. Serena scoffed. I'm not interested in dirtying my scales with politics, unlike you. But it does concern you, sister. To unite the mermen, he is planning on solving the problems in the lake. The pollution, the lack of resources, everything. He knows he can't do it alone, so he has gone to ask for help from the human factions. My squids have already seen a few visitors here and there, exchanging sand dollars for sous and everything else. I'm sure you've met them too. Serena didn't want to believe Octavia's glib tongue. With her personality, she would surely say anything to advance her ambitions. But she had to admit that she was right. The big transactions that she told Michael were from those human factions. And why does this concern me? She asked the octopus princess. Because you've been trying to recommend your own human company to us, haven't you? The Reborn. Serena corrected. Yes, Reborn. If our brother succeeds, this Reborn company of yours will have no space here in our waters. But if I succeed, I will make sure that they'd be treated with a modicum of respect. Serena took a furtive glance towards Michael, who was expressionless as the two continued to converse. What do you want me to do? It's simple, said Princess Octavia. As much as I hate to admit, your name and your face still holds a lot of sway amongst our people. Just give me your public nomination, and we can sway the opinions towards our side. Just then, Serena thought of something better. Why not just have the Reborn company help with your campaign or whatever? They'll help with cleaning up the waters and providing food for us. Serena was confident that Michael had a solution for every single problem that the mermen faced. We don't need their help, said Princess Octavia. A human faction has already contacted me about a solution. They've assured me that they can solve the lake's problem. How? Serena asked. They will send magnetics every day to clean up the pollution, Octavia answered. This wasn't a bad solution, per se, but it wasn't very sustainable. From her estimation, it would need about 10 magnetics or more working every day to clean up the lake to keep it fresh all the time. How about the food? We've arranged a delivery that spans from the coast of the continent to here in New Sparta. Now, it will take a long time to establish this route, but once it's secured, we'll have plenty of resources coming straight from the sea. Once again, that wasn't a bad solution. It just wasn't the perfect one. And in her opinion, Michael and the Reborn company could simply do all that and more for a fraction of the effort. The nation made in the middle of a desolate desert proved that point. Trust me, sister. You do not need their help. Reborn can provide us with everything we want. Isn't that right? Serena asked Michael. Yes, they can, he answered. Princess Octavia frowned. How would you know? Kyo answered. I know a lot about them. Chapter 844. How much? Princess Octavia was intrigued. The professor's protege was endorsing a human company? As far as she knew, nerds like him spent most of their time burying their heads in books and scrolls. The professor certainly did so. The fact that a man of his caliber, recluse, spoke such high regard to a company meant that it was probably worth giving a chance. Can this Reborn company really help us? She asked them both. Serena nodded. Yes, they can. The octopus princess thought about it for a second before shaking her head. It's too late. We've already made an arrangement with another company. How much? Michael asked her. Huh. How much sand dollars were you willing to give this company? Without thinking about it much, Princess Octavia blurted out the real number. 10 million sand dollars. That's the start. We have to pay them a subsequent 1 million sand dollars each month for the maintenance of the lake. Serena took a deep breath. That was not cheap, even for a royal like Octavia, especially since she'd be shouldering most of that cost alone. But it would be worth it though. After all, if she succeeded, she'd have the entirety of the new Sparta Lake under her ambitious tentacles. Not only that, but it was also a great start if she wanted to expand her influence even further than the lake, possibly using it as a foothold in Atlantis. Still, it was a risk, a sizable one. She was basically putting it all on the line with the hopes of overturning her brother in this underwater political race. If she lost, she didn't even want to think about that. She'd absolutely have to kiss her ambitions of ruling over Atlantis goodbye, at least not without Mariana's jewel. Other companies have put in their bids, but their price was too high for me. So, I had to get the lowest one. Then Princess Octavia turned to her sister. But maybe you can make a generous donation to my campaign, sister. With your help, we can afford one of those legacies or even that Aubert company. Add another 20 million and we can call it. After hearing those staggering numbers, Michael immediately stepped forward. Ahem. I'm pretty sure that the Reborn company can do it much cheaper. Intrigued, the princess asked. How much? 1 million sand dollars. No more fees after that. This certainly took the octopus princess' attention. Her skin briefly shimmered into a reddish hue at the opportunity, before it quickly cooled down with a pale blue. This was too good to be true. Who wouldn't want to spend a fraction of the price for the same outcome? If she only spent 1 million for this lake renovation project, then she could use that money on other avenues and secure her campaign against her brother. It would increase her success by almost 50%. However, the only problem with that was the outcome. With such a low price, could this Reborn company truly fix the problems in their lake? Or would they simply give a false promise and leave once they got their money? That doesn't seem realistic, she said skeptically. Did I set the price too low? Michael asked himself. To be honest, he would have accepted 10,000 sand dollars and he would have been satisfied. In fact, he reckoned that the whole project could be paid with gold coins. Not to devalue that currency, but in the world of magnetics, gold coins were practically useless. It's a low price because the Reborn company values cooperation more than monetary value. They don't want to just work with you in this project alone, but others in the future as well. Think of it as a gesture of faith. Princess Octavia stayed silent, the skin of her ever-changing octopus tentacles betraying the current turmoil in her mind. Michael could see her eyes starting to calculate the risk and rewards of this choice. He wanted to help her out. Just see if it works first. The Reborn company will work on the project and you can pay the money after they're done. The octopus princess squinted her eyes at him. You sure make a lot of decisions about this company. Michael sighed and performed a slight bow. I haven't been honest, princess. The truth is that I was part of the Reborn company even before I became the professor's protege. Princess Serena and I knew each other long before this, and my aim in going to this lake was to speak with her. Silence reigned in the throne room of the sunken ship, only broken by bubbles as mermen swam around them. All right, Princess Octavia nodded. I was starting to suspect something was going on between the two of you. Does this mean you're going to work with the Reborn company? Serena asked excitedly. In the meantime, Octavia corrected, I will see first if their work is sufficient. If not, then forgive me for calling upon the other company and letting them finish the job. Michael nodded. That was understandable. Follow me. I'll let you see the problems that are plaguing our lake. Princess Octavia led Michael and Serena out of the sunken ship and out into the open waters. It seemed that that region of the water was where Octavia's camp resided, which made sense. Almost all of the mermen he saw were of the invertebrate kind, octopus, squids, and other such marine animals. Once they left the confines of the sunken ship, Michael immediately felt the solitary coldness of water. Without the bright bioluminescent corals and fishes to substitute the light of the sun, the only thing they could see was darkness, and the distant luster of another territory far away. "Why does it look so dead here?" he said, his voice echoing from the dark depths. "My influence only spreads as far as the sunken ship," Octavia replied. "The liveliness you see there, the corals, the fishes, and everything within the ecosystem, must be maintained with a lot of resources. It already takes a lot of money to fund the sunken ship, much more if I had to expand here." Michael looked back at the fading, lonely visage of the sunken ship amidst nothing but darkness. "Marine life should be able to sustain themselves without intervention," he said. "In the seven seas, yes. Life finds a way even in the most extreme circumstances there. But it seems that doesn't apply here." "You don't know?" "We have no idea," she said dejectedly. "Perhaps, because it is a man-made lake, the gods' influence doesn't spread here." Even though Michael had interacted with several goddesses, 2 to be exact, he didn't believe that they were the cause of the lake's problem. ChatJK5, can you analyze? Already done. The water does not contain the necessary phytoplanktons to start the marine food chain. Phytoplanktons were the cornerstone of marine life. Without them, the oceanic ecosystem would experience a mass extinction, much like what was happening here in the lake. Mermen eat fish, fishes eat krill, and krill eats phytoplanktons. But not fishes, which explained their distinct lack here in the depths. Chapter 845, Dirty Trench. Phytoplanktons are microscopic beings, which is why mermen didn't notice their absence. They knew something was wrong, they just didn't know what. And now, Michael was going to take advantage of that and earn a whopping $1,000,000 from them. ChatJK5, please tell me you have a solution. I was able to sample from the water and analyze a phytoplankton's anatomy. I have found their constitution to be 90% similar to the ones you have in your previous world. But the other 10% are completely unique to this world. Meaning, they have been mutated with mana. In this world, continued contact with the penetrating power of mana led their DNA to change and morph into something that can store magic in their bodies. It seemed that these phytoplanktons were subject to this change, which meant that photosynthesis wouldn't be enough to sustain their growth, unlike in his previous world. The ocean in this world must have contained some kind of delicate process that allowed these phytoplanktons to receive both energy from the natural world and mana from the mystical world to survive. And this lake, despite being made through magic, lacked that aspect completely. Can you think of a way to grow these phytoplanktons with magic? Working on it, she said. Meanwhile, Michael continued to get dragged along the bubble along with the mermaid princesses. Then he noticed something. Instead of swimming towards the distant glow of lights in the far reaches of the lake, they were instead going far away from it. Princess Octavia seemed to notice his confusion and quickly explained. That place is ruled by my brother. He's richer than me, so he can afford to create a bigger territory. Nothing much of interest is going on over there. Somehow Michael doubted that. The octopus princess was letting her dislike of her brother influence her actions. He had a feeling that she just didn't want to go over there, probably because of jealousy and other such emotions. Instead, I'll show you the dirty side of the lake. Eventually, the octopus princess led him towards a very deep trench that led even deeper down the crust of the world. Michael couldn't see anything beyond this chasm, even with his supreme talent. No life lived here. Standing just mere inches away from the near vertical cliff, even Michael felt a little bit uncomfortable. He willed his bubble to pull backwards, worried that the darkness would somehow pull him closer towards the depths. The severe lack of mana in that place was unnerving, especially to someone whose life revolved around magic. It felt like the complete antithesis of him. While he was full of magic, this place was devoid of it. No wonder he felt like the darkness was trying to swallow him. It was attracted to his mana. The only way to correct the imbalance of magic or complete lack of it was to imbue it with something that was full of magic. And that was none other than Michael. See the dirty depths of this lake? Princess Octavia said, trying not to turn away. This place was revolting, even for mermen, who spent their whole lives in the dark depths of the ocean floor. As it turned out, the pollution that they were talking about wasn't actual trash that people threw in the water. It was a pollution of a severe lack of mana. This dirty water is spreading all around and infecting our people. Many have already reported getting sick to their stomachs, unable to even stand or talk. Unfortunately, some have already succumbed to its dire effects. This trench is taking all of the mana in the water. Those mermen are probably experiencing mana sickness, something that only happens when their bodies cannot take in mana like they were supposed to. It finally made sense why phytoplanktons couldn't survive in this lake. All the mana that they were supposed to eat were being swallowed by this trench instead. But even that didn't seem to satiate this ancient, tectonic edge. Whoever constructed New Sparta didn't do a good job. They should have chosen a better place to put the lake. Somehow, they chose the worst spot possible. They chose a spot where it had a trench leading to the center of the earth. Of course, that was an exaggeration, but it seemed like the truth with the extreme lack of life down there. So, in order to solve both the pollution and lack of resources in this lake, I have to solve the lack of mana in this trench. Seems easy enough, he lied to himself. Thankfully, his personal AI assistant came in handy once again. I have formulated a decent solution to this problem. Oh, tell me, this trench needs mana. If we were to give it the sustenance it needs, then we can solve both problems at once. He shook his head. But to do that, we'd need to basically spend a year moving mana from the surface world to the depths of this lake. That's not very efficient. It would have been better if Princess Octavia went with the other company at that point. At least with them, they'd promised to send 10 magnetics every day to clean up the dirty water, which probably meant imbuing it with mana. We don't have to fill it up completely, said ChatJK5. We just have to fill it up to the point where it won't bother the rest of the water anymore. And before Michael could even say anything else, he suddenly reeled his head back as a flurry of information washed over his mind. ChatJK5 began sending him loads of materials regarding the blueprints of this new project that they were going to complete. Kyo? What's wrong? Michael snapped back, returning to reality. It's nothing. I just found a solution. He couldn't help but break out in a smile. The solution that ChatJK5 gave him not only solved the current problems of the lake, but also gave way for an opportunity to spread the ideals of the nation of Reborn. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.